Good timing, right? Anyway, good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It's Monday, May the 4th, Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Of course, yesterday, a celebration all over the world for Willie Guy's Day. It was Willie's birthday on Sunday and Mika's on Saturday. We went to see some horses race somewhere in the South. With us today, we have on May the 4th, co-host of our 9 a.m. hour, staff writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, columnist and associate editor at The Washington Post, David Ignatius. We had senior writer at The Dispatch and columnist at Bloomberg Opinion, David Drucker, and co-host of The Rest is Politics podcast on the BBC, or the BBC's Caddy K. Everybody, thanks so much for being with us. John Lemire, the force, definitely not with our Red Sox. Oh my, I didn't, I'm sorry. I forgot about the Celtics. I should not have even brought up sports. We should have gone straight to horses. I did not do that on purpose, but once the door was open and I saw you crumble, let's just go there. First of all, really the worst Red Sox team I can remember. They fired the wrong person and the people in the organization. And then, of course, last night, heartbreak for the Celtics. Take us through what it's like this morning to be a Boston fan.
This moment in Boston sports, the Red Sox are on May the 4th, basically season's over. The popular World Series winning manager has been fired. They dump the hitting coach and proceed to hit about 100 since then. They lose a series to the Jays, the Astros. We have the Boston Celtics blow a 3-1 series lead and lose Game 7 at home to the Sixers. Jason Tatum, their star, hurt, not playing. A wonderful regular season quickly cast aside. And we'll add the Boston Bruins, the hockey team, their season also ended over the weekend, getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. And you might have heard the New England Patriots, our football team, having some off-the-field issues at the moment. So it is just a spectacular time right now for Boston sports fans. But yeah, Joe, our Red Sox are pathetic. I was at the game on Saturday, and it's just terrible up at Fenway. And it's just terrible how lifeless they are and how this fan base has already sort of given up on the season. And there's so much anger at the general manager and at ownership.
Well, you know, so many times, what are we going to do? Watch the... Oh, no. There's... Durant.
Hey,
that
was one hit. There it is.
One hit. And that's it. There you go. That is offensive highlights for the Boston Red Sox over the past week. We hope you enjoyed it. Brought to you by the Lemire Bitters. Put it in whatever old fashioned you would like. Lemire Bitters, now sold all over Boston and the greater New England area. No, they're terrible. Really, you actually had Bregman, who would sit and coach during the entire game. So they should have brought him back. We're hurting on hitting because of that. I've heard so many stories of these computer nerds, in one case going up to a Hall of Famer, telling them not to actually talk to players about hitting because it's all about the computers. But I hate to mention names, so I won't mention names. I know you probably will. But really, if you look at the people that are middle relievers they have to go to first, they are the worst. I mean, they're not even AAA. They're just absolutely heinous.
Yeah, I'm sure Greg Weissert's a lovely man. I'd rather him not be on my baseball team anymore. I mean, it's just it's up and
Zach
down.
Kelly,
right.
I think Zach Kelly also a lovely man.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure he's his parents and community is very proud of him.
Could have been.
But again, I'd rather he ply his trade elsewhere. But it seems like relievers who throw 98 miles an hour in this day and age of baseball grow on trees, and yet we seem to have none of them. Yeah. Chapman at the end of the game, sure, but we have no. It's a nice. You're right, Joe. It's a symbol as to just how deficient this roster is. All of our starting pitchers supposed to be a strength of this team are hurt. The lineup is inept. The relievers are bad, but otherwise things are going great.
Everything's great in Boston. By the way, little known fact, 3 of Boston's relievers, they throw underhanded. Now, who thought that was going to work, Caddy K? You don't even know baseball, Caddy. You know you can't throw underhanded. And Mika had a birthday at the Derby. It was a wonderful time had by all. She loves horses so much and has her entire life. A bit skeptical of horse racing, but no more.
Yeah. Did you win some money or win some mint juleps or something at least?
No. I just had my sweet tea and just sat there, taking it all in. And then, Caddy, have you been to the Derby with like the Queen or something? I mean,
I went with the Queen.
Of course you have. Tell us about that.
It was a great day. She was in a box, a couple of boxes down from where we were, so I could actually see her. She really does love horses and really did love racing. So for her, it was a treat to go, and everybody was thrilled that she was there. I think she may have made a bob or two on some of the horses. Who knows? Maybe she'd like to take a little flutter on the ponies. But I didn't see her sipping mint juleps, which was a bit disappointing. I thought it was a day for mint juleps myself.
Yeah.
It was a very good day.
And you had quite a few, I heard. You had quite a few. So anyway,
There's
you went with the Queen
that are not substantiated, and there'll be no comment.
Exactly. Okay. So you go with the Queen. Mika and I went with John Morgan. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So it was
His Royal
much
Highness.
fun. So His Royal Highness, that's right, King
Anyway, look,
Morgan.
it's 6:06. Should we get to the news?
We better.
Okay, let's do it. President Trump says that starting this morning, the United States will begin what he calls a humanitarian effort to guide stranded ships through the Strait of Hormuz. In a lengthy social media say the plan is effectively a coordination cell to move traffic through the strait, involving countries, insurance companies, and shipping organizations, adding it doesn't currently involve U.S. Navy warships escorting vessels through the strait. Iran's responding to the president's plan this morning with a top official warning interference in the waterway could be seen as a ceasefire violation involving countries, insurance companies, and shipping organizations, adding it doesn't currently involve U.S. Navy warships escorting vessels through the strait. Iran's responding to the president's plan this morning with a top official warning interference in the waterway could be seen as a ceasefire violation, and the country's military saying U.S. forces will be attacked if they enter the oil choke point. As the standoff over the strait intensifies, 2 ships were targeted there in the past 24 hours. That's according to a British maritime agency. The president's push to clear the key waterway comes as gas prices continue to rise, hitting an average yesterday of $4.45. It also comes as negotiations appear to remain at an impasse, with the 2 countries trading peace proposals. Amid the ongoing stalemate in the strait and the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, the White House is arguing that hostilities with Iran have, quote, terminated. That assertion comes as lawmakers from both sides of the aisle put pressure on the administration to seek congressional authorization for the conflict that has now stretched past the 60-day mark when it's required by the War Powers Act for a president to do so. In a letter to congressional leaders on Friday, the day that the 60-day countdown expired, President Trump claimed the ceasefire had paused the clock, writing, quote, the hostilities that began on February the 28th of 2026 have terminated. He went on to say the threat posed by Iran to the U.S. and its military, quote, remains significant, but that he will, quote, continue to direct U.S. armed forces consistent with my responsibilities and pursuant to my constitutional authority to conduct United States foreign relations as president and commander-in-chief. So, Joe, this is an odd situation. We seem to have, on the one hand, the promise that there's going to be massive amounts of military involved in this Operation Freedom in some way, but we've also paused or terminated actual military operations. I'm a little confused. Colour me confused this Monday morning.
From the very beginning, and David Ignatius, of course, the president then went on Friday to talk about the reason why we are at war. is because those crazy Iranians can never have a nuclear weapon. Take a look at this.
You know, we're in a war because I think you would agree we cannot let lunatics have a nuclear weapon. Do you agree?
So this works, David Ignatius, in American politics for Donald Trump. Throw so much stuff at the wall and have so many different statements going in so many different directions that Democrats just stand around looking confused, scratching their heads, and losing elections. Doesn't work that way in international relations, and certainly not working with Iran right now, is it?
So Donald Trump, as of this Monday, is stuck somewhere between war and peace. He has nominally a ceasefire, but it's accompanied by continuing threats from him, and this morning a threat from a senior Iranian commander. And this new Project Freedom, as President Trump called it on Sunday, an attempt, it appears, to help ships move through the Straits of Hormuz without actually formally providing a military escort. It's a rescue effort, but I was thinking, reading about it last night, it's really an effort to rescue President Trump's policy, is find a way to transition from this neither war nor peace situation to something that's more stable. He's not getting much help from anybody. We'll have to see whether the Chinese, who he seems to be making a nod to in his statement announcing desire to help all countries who depend on the strait for the reopening. We'll see if he gets some aid from them or from the British or French down the road. But for the moment, this war, which every week seems to drive his approval ratings down, can be moved from this kind of netherworld into something more stable. The president expressed hope about what he said were very positive discussions with Iranian representatives. But when you look at what's been leaked about their latest 14-point peace plan, there's not much in it for the United States. So, Joe, it's one of those situations that the president, having jumped into, is having real trouble getting back out of.
Yeah, we should note, Wall Street Journal in their story about this new plan puts it this way. They talked to European diplomats and ship owners who've recalled previous failed efforts by the president to get shipping moving, saying without warship escorts, a coordination cell is unlikely to really change anything in the Strait. So there's a sense here they're trying new things, but the president is stuck. The Strait of Hormuz remains under Iranian control. A British tanker ship came under attack over the weekend, and Iran simply has more and more leverage over one of the most vital waterways in the land. And to David Ignatius' point, as the war drags on, the president's poll numbers keep slipping. The number of people who disapprove of the way that Trump is handling his job has climbed to the highest in his presidency. That's according to the new Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll. 62% say they disapprove of the way Trump has handled his job in the Oval Office. That's compared to 37% who approve, which is down 2 points from February. Meanwhile, 65% disapprove of the way Trump is handling the overall economy, which is down 7 points from 3 months ago. 70% of those polled who disapprove of how the president is handling inflation and the rising cost of living. Trump's ratings on other issues also remain low, with more than 60% disapproving of his handling of the war in Iran, relations with American U.S. allies, and also taxes. When it comes to the midterms, on a generic U.S. House ballot, those polled were leaning toward picking a Democrat over Republican by 5 points. And David Drucker, the politics of this are crystal clear, at least for the moment. Sure, November is still many months off, but there is a sense that a lot of voters start kind of baking in their decisions by early to midsummer. That's not so far off. And the president is stuck with Iran. It has consumed every other part of his presidency and driving down his overall numbers, including on what's supposed to be a strength, his handling of the economy.
Yeah, it really has, Jonathan. And look, I mean, I think, part of the pickle that the president's in is it's hard to ask the American people to support something or to earn their support when they don't know what the policy is and why we're fighting. And the president's constantly shifting explanations for why we're at war, how long it's going to last. Is it even happening at all? I mean, you know, the crazy thing about this 60-day, termination, or we're at a pause, therefore we don't have to ask for congressional authorization, is the president continues to talk about gas prices going down once the war is over, meaning the war's not over, except he just told Congress the war is kind of over. All right. And it goes to Caddy's report here this morning where she was reading about this plan to help ships navigate the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you're like, hey, that's a really good idea. Don't like that we're in this situation, but good plan. And then we find out the plan doesn't include Navy warships. So how are we going to escort ships that are stranded through a military minefield, right? So there's constant talking in one direction and then talking over here in another direction. And it leaves voters wondering what the heck is going on. I want to point out, too, in that Washington Post Ipsos poll, when they asked people who were most certain to vote, where they were leaning with their congressional vote in that generic ballot, the Democratic advantage goes up to 9 points. And when they were talking to voters and asked them, hey, is this midterm election more important than past midterm elections? Democrats said it was more important by an advantage of 21 points. And so, look, it's always easy to cherry pick a poll, but the point about this poll is it fits within the averages and it fits within the trend that has shown voters slowly but surely, and now in some cases at a greater pace, moving away from the Republican Party.
So David, you have this irresistible force of polling against an immovable object, which, of course, is the reality of this war with Iran, and it is a war with Iran still right now. If you look at what the New York Post is saying today, obviously a Murdoch paper, tabloid very close to Donald Trump, they're saying finish the job. Finish the job. The Wall Street Journal has said, finish the job. You and I hear from Gulf allies all the time. Those are the words, finish the job. And so these polls would suggest that a politician cut and run. Our allies, many of the president's allies, are saying you can't cut and run. The president doesn't sound like he's going to do that right now. But the reality is, if he did cut and run, the situation would only be worse. There would be a nuclear Iran that, compared to the Obama era, has much more atomic material, nuclear material. And then on the other side of it, you have the issue of the Strait. It's just, again, the president's, used the word, it's in a pickle. The poll numbers may be low, but the president's options are still limited because leaving leaves a nuclear Iran and a Strait owned by the Revolutionary Guard.
So, Joe, this has been a reminder to me of why presidents for 47 years have been so careful about starting a conflict with Iran. Iran is a big, powerful country, and it's wily, it's smart. It doesn't give you easy options to get out. And President Trump is now confronting the reality of that. We always talk about the danger when you're thinking about military conflict of unanticipated consequences. It's obvious that the administration, the president himself, simply didn't anticipate the way that Iran could use the Strait of Hormuz as leverage. I'm sure he was briefed on it, but he seems to have blown through those briefings in the conviction that Iran would be like Venezuela. How many times have you and I, Joe, talked about this idea he had coming out of that amazing mission that everything would be like Venezuela? He'd blow into town, they'd capitulate, it'd be over. He obviously had a feeling like that about Iran. And now he's stuck, and nobody really is rushing to help him, which is part of his problem. The Europeans are going to have to think that their interests require them to be more active. But again, this is a lesson in why being careful with the use of military force is so important. And I'll bet it's one that even Donald Trump today is learning. He does not want to go back into a big war. You can just see that, even with this announcement about sort of quasi-escorting ships. He does not want to be in a shooting war again. But the way things are going, if Iran doesn't budge, he may be.
Yeah, he may be. And so that's one lesson. I mean, the lesson of why you haven't had presidents deciding to go into Iran for 47 years. It's another lesson and something we talked about endlessly during the nomination process, why he can't have somebody like Pete Hegseth as his Secretary of Defense. There are costs. That's when you need a Secretary of Defense that's been to war or that understands war and that can actually give you good information to make the best decision. But instead, he had Pete Hegseth pushing him into this war. He had Lindsey Graham pushing him into this war. And he had Benjamin Netanyahu pushing him into this war. They got their way. And now Donald Trump should look to Pete Hegseth and say, okay, smart guy, you wanted this? What do I do now? Yeah, I mean, if everything else I'm sorry, go ahead, David.
Well, you know, Joe, as we always remember, there's this little invisible plaque that says the buck stops here. It does stop on the president's desk. And there's just no escaping that, and that's what the voters are seeing. And, you know, Hegseth's provocative, aggressive comments every time he speaks almost make the situation worse because there's such a mismatch between that kind of belligerent talk and the real situation in which the U.S. finds itself.
Yeah, and the buck does stop with the president. He's the one who made the choice. He made the choice based on the opinions that he was getting and the people he's listening to. And there you have Pete Hegseth, who every time he speaks makes the situation worse for the president. He is the reminder every day of this failed Iranian policy. Still ahead on Morning Joe, Acting Attorney General Todd Blank. David Ignatius, we're talking about what war, peace, ceasefires, a way forward. Right now, Iranian state media is saying that it has struck two missiles hit a U.S. Navy vessel near Jask Island after it ignored warnings from the Revolutionary Guard to halt. Again, this is Iranian state media. They have, of course, been lying since 1979. That said, in this war, often what they've reported has ended up being confirmed by Western news sources. So if in fact that is the case, that U.S. Navy ships have been hit after ignoring warnings, obviously, we've reached a new level of escalation, David.
Joe, obviously, we have to be careful with this first report, but we're sure that there is a very precarious situation in the Gulf now in which the U.S. is announcing a desire to help facilitate transit through the Strait of Hormuz, but isn't declaring an actual escort mission. And this morning, we didn't talk much about it, but an Iranian commander said early this morning that U.S. ships would be fired upon if they challenged the Gulf, challenged the Iranian presence. So we may be seeing a follow-up. I'm thinking, as you are, as I'm sure all of our viewers are, what does President Trump do in response to this? When somebody shoots missiles at your ship, you then are almost obligated to take action. And so what was a precarious situation before now becomes even more so. I'm sure that the Pakistani mediators who've been active now for several weeks are on the phone right now. If this is a Revolutionary Guard vessel outside the normal Iranian chain of command, that's one thing. If it reflects the decision by the leadership in Tehran, that's another. So much we don't know right now, but I must say, you can just see the black smoke rising from the Gulf and worry that the next stage could be another downturn.
Yeah, David, let's spend another minute on this. We should, of course, reiterate it's from Iranian state media. It's not been independently verified. I've texted a few people in the Trump administration, no word yet. I mean, news just broke a few moments ago that this alleged event occurred. But if it is true, it is a marked escalation, that this is Iran suggesting that, we do control the Strait of Hormuz, and this is a U.S. warship. There have been attacks on U.S. ships earlier in the war, largely defended. We have learned, though, that in recent reporting that Iran had more success hitting some U.S. military bases in the region in the war's first days than was first known. But if indeed there were some reports, Axios over the weekend reporting that what the president settled upon, this coordination cell for the Strait of Hormuz, was a little bit of a watered-down version. The original plan was to put U.S. warships, as an escort. This, though, highlights the danger of that. And I agree. I think we'll have to see what comes out of the White House and the president's Truth Social account in the next few minutes or hours. But this feels like it could be a step to resuming hostilities.
It sure does. The idea that U.S. ships have been attacked and there's no response it won't sit well with President Trump, and is not a way to demonstrate U.S. resolve in reopening the strait. Again, it's such a delicately balanced situation, and I'm struck, Jonathan and Joe, by the fact that the United States so clearly wants to get out of this conflict, and Iran pretty clearly doesn't want to yet. Iran has been dragging the negotiations out, has been offering pretty tepid peace plans, and you can sense the mounting frustration in the Trump White House as they look for an exit ramp and they keep finding the exits blocked. This morning may be blocked with missiles being shot at one of our ships. We don't know yet, but that could be a possibility.
David, when you say that the U.S. clearly wants out, is that everyone in the administration? Are there still tensions within the administration and perhaps even at the Pentagon between those who would like to carry on a more robust military posture towards Iran and those who are saying, no, we can't have any more fighting and want to get out as quickly as possible, whatever that leaves behind?
So, in my experience, the military would be offering different contingency plans for different policy choices that were made, but it's unlikely in the situation that the military itself would be strongly arguing for a course of action. We have some Gulf allies, in particular the United Arab Emirates, who have been saying, you cannot leave us stranded in this situation. As Joe said earlier, they've been saying, you have to finish this, and kind of egging Trump on. There are others calling for restraint, and I think Pakistan's trying very hard to find a middle way. But I think to the extent there are differences within the administration over the next day, if we do our reporting, we'll surface that a little bit more.
So, David, speaking of reporting, I'm going to let you sort through this one for all of us. Barack Ravid, of course, with Axios, is saying that a senior U.S. official denied that a U.S. ship has been hit by Iranian missiles. It is obviously, we're in the early moments of this, so I certainly am not placing any sort of moral equivalency between government of Iran and the U.S. government. I will simply say we have two eyewitnesses saying that the ships were in fact hit, according to Al Jazeera, and we have one senior official right now on background telling Axios that no U.S. ship was hit. So hard to say, and we will need to wait at least a few hours before we get actionable information out of that area. But your thoughts on a U.S. official denying it to Axios, and then other news agencies saying that, in fact, a ship has been hit, according to two eyewitnesses.
We speak of the fog of war, and here's an example. We're having trouble seeing just what happened, and that's not an unusual situation. I think it's appropriate when U.S. military commanders are careful in their descriptions of actions that are taking place until they've done a thorough examination of what's happened. And that may be some of what we're seeing. People don't want to come through with comments that almost require the president to take action until they know exactly what the situation is and have sized it up. But, this is a moment where every bit of the intelligence gathering, signals monitoring capabilities that the United States government has, you have, because they will find out exactly what's happened, and then hopefully we'll have a careful process to decide what to do.
Exactly, and we will see what happens. It is news in and of itself that Iranian state media wants the world to think they did strike 2 U.S. ships, while President of the United States keeps talking about how we're moving toward a deal, moving toward peace, moving toward a plan to move forward in the Strait of Hormuz. As you said, David, it does not appear the Iranians want peace. So the Washington Post's David Ignatius, I know you've got to leave pretty soon. If you can stay with us a little bit longer, that'd be great. Okay, well, we'll see David, and we'll continue also with the new polling and why this war in Iran is so unpopular and has been such a drag on the president and Republicans. We'll be right back.